The top stories tonight in Y News. Presidential aspirants Senator Manny Pacquiao and Bongbong Marcos submitted negative drug test results following President Rodrigo Duterte's accusation that a male presidential hopeful has been using cocaine. Meanwhile, the palace reiterates that candidates undergoing drug tests are voluntary.
Philippine resupply boats that were harassed by Chinese vessels last week safely arrived in Ayungin Shoal. However, the journey was not as smooth sailing as expected.
And the National Telecommunications Commission has directed telco networks in the country to warn its subscribers on the scam messages offering fake jobs.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. We are now reporting live from Quezon City. Today is Tuesday, November 23, 2021. I am Herlene Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Tino.
First in the news. It was a mission accomplished for two Philippine boats that safely arrived in Ayungin Shoal in the West Philippine Sea. But the resupply mission was not as smooth sailing as initially expected. Leia Ilagan explains why.
Chinese Coast Guard boats were present near Ayungin Shoal at the time the supply boats of the Philippine military relayed the goods to the soldiers at the PRP Sierra Madre. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said the Chinese boats took photos and videos of the resupply mission. Secretary Lorenzana also said he again communicated with the Chinese ambassador in Manila as the acts are considered as a form of intimidation and harassment. Meanwhile, maritime expert Professor J. Batumbakal explains that American troops cannot interfere with the current escalation in the disputed waters under the Mutual Defense Treaty.
Yung requirements sa Mutual Defense Treaty, very technical and restrictive po, shall we say, yung nakalagay na requirement on. Ang requirement po is an armed attack against Philippine troops, public ships or aircraft in the metropolitan territory of the Philippines. No? Pag sinabing metropolitan, ibig sabihin yung mga islands and waters of the Philippines under their jurisdiction. No?
The water cannon attack of Chinese Coast Guard vessel to two Philippine boats also does not meet the requirement.
Itong nangyari na winater cannon, yung ating mga barko, hindi po yan magka-qualify as an armed attack. No? Although, yun nga, maaaring ginawa siya laban sa Philippine troops or vessels doon sa South China Sea. Pero dahil walang armed attack, technically hindi pa yan nararapat na situation. No?
Batumbakal said China is using such tactics to escape from their harassment activities. The maritime law experts suggest that Philippine authorities should continuously file diplomatic protest against the illegal activities of China in the West Philippine Sea. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Makabayan lawmakers filed a resolution urging the House of Representatives to investigate and condemn the Chinese boat guard blocking and water cannon attack in the Ayungin Shoal. Nel Marie Buhok will tell us why.
It is the duty of Congress to ensure that our territorial integrity is intact. Local and international laws should be honored and recognized. This is what the House Makabayan Bloc lawmakers said in their House Resolution number 2370. The six-member group urged the House of Representatives to investigate the Chinese Coast Guard's blocking and water cannon attack against Filipino supply boats heading to Ayungin Shoal last November 16. Meanwhile, Professor Romel Banlawi, a security analyst, said that the Philippines and China should establish another mechanism that can promote closer coordination on the ground in order to avoid incidents that have the potential of damaging their overall bilateral relations.
So pinapakita dito yung gap between China's diplomatic behavior and China's ground behavior. Kaya nga isa sa mga minumungkahi ko ay magkaroon din ng mechanism between the two countries on the ground para ma-coordinate yung actions nila, at kung may mga unilateral actions yung both parties ay magkaroon ng prior coordination para maiwasan yung mga ganitong klaseng insidente, lalo na kung tayo rin magpapatrol yan.
Banlawi also said that the finalization and a legally binding code of conduct in South China Sea will ensure peace, stability, and security in the region.
Kasi sa code of conduct, pinagbabawal yung mga ganitong klaseng unilateral actions, at ngayon pinag-usapan kung ano ang mga penalties or sanctions against parties na lalabag sa code of conduct.
Yesterday, President Rodrigo Duterte said during a regional summit that the Philippines abhors the recent altercation with Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea, stating that the rule of law was the only way out of problems. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Two more presidential aspirants released their negative drug test results following the controversial claim of President Rodrigo Duterte that a candidate is allegedly into illegal drugs. Arlene Delgado explains why.
Following the claim of President Duterte of an unnamed candidate allegedly using cocaine, the camp of former Senator Bongbong Marcos released his drug test yielding negative result. In a statement, Marcos says he does not feel that he is the one being alluded to by the president, but believes it is his duty to assure the public that he is against illegal drugs. The first drug test report indicates that Marcos is negative for cocaine, while the other one shows that he is negative for methamphetamine, also known as shabu, and tetrahydrocannabinol or THC, a psychoactive compound in marijuana. Marcos says the result was submitted this morning to the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, the Office of the Chief of the Philippine National Police, and the National Bureau of Investigation. The former senator calls on other aspirants to take the drug test. Meanwhile, another presidential aspirant, Senator Manny Pacquiao, released the copies of his anti-doping tests that were taken prior to his boxing match with Yordenis Ugas last August. Pacquiao's camp says the test was conducted by the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association or VADA in the United States last July and September. Both tests show that Pacquiao was found negative of any of the substances prohibited by the World Boxing Council. The senator's camp notes that the VADA test is more extensive than the ordinary drug tests that are administered in the Philippines, as it covers almost 400 prohibited substances. His camp adds Pacquiao was scheduled to take a hair follicle test, but the senator wanted a laboratory that can deliver immediate results. Arlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God. The Malacañang says the anti-drug war of the Duterte administration does not spare the rich. Meanwhile, the palace also says election candidates undergoing drug tests is only voluntary. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte has repeatedly mentioned a presidential aspirant who is an alleged cocaine user in his recent speeches. Last night, he said these wealthy persons get away with doing illegal drugs in yachts and airplanes.
Totoo yan. There's a candidate who was using cocaine. And you can ask yung mga mayaman. And sabi ng polis, bakit hindi natin hinuli? Bakit hindi mo hinuli, Presidente? Hindi mo alam ang mga mayaman. They go on yate, or in the air. Doon yan sila mag-sop-sop ng nila.
In response to the president's claim, however, the palace explained this does not mean the government is sparing the rich and those well-connected in the anti-drug war. Due to the controversial statement of the president, the drug war is again being questioned for having double standards.
Hindi po. Actually, kung titingnan natin ang datos, according to PDEA, pati ang ating mga law enforcement agencies, ay marami na po tayong nahuli na mga high-value targets na lumalabag sa Dangerous Drugs Act. No?
Secretary Nograles said the president's statement is calling on the public to be vigilant and report illegal drug activities to law enforcement agencies. Meanwhile, following President Duterte's disclosure about the presidential aspirant who is an alleged cocaine user, the issue of election candidates undergoing drug tests resurfaced. Senator Panfilo Lacson and Senate President Tito Soto have already undergone drug tests. Even former Senator and presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos also tested negative for cocaine test. But Malacañang said this is not mandatory.
That's voluntary. Even if hindi siya kasama sa mga requirements for candidates, whether presidential, vice presidential, senator, or kung anumang posisyon, it's purely voluntary at nasa kanila po yun kung magpa-voluntary drug test sila para isa publiko na sila ay drug-free, then it's entirely up to these candidates po.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
On December 1st, unvaccinated on-site workers will be subjected to no work, no pay policy if they refuse to undergo regular COVID-19 testing. However, a labor group says it is better to provide incentives to encourage more workers to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Eileen Cerudo explains why live. Yes, Eileen, go ahead. Good evening.
Good evening, William. Discrimination against unvaccinated employees. That is what Alan Tanhusay, spokesperson of Associated Labor Unions, Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, calls the no work, no pay policy of the Department of Labor and Employment. The no work, no pay policy of DOLE will be applicable to unvaccinated on-site employees who also refuse to undergo regular RT-PCR testing.
Yan ay salungat at kumukontra doon sa Republic Act 11525 na kung saan sinasabi ng batas na hindi dapat mandatory ang vaccination dito sa ating bansa. So, ang sinasabi ng DOLE na no vaccine, no work, no pay ay isang paglabag ng batas at napakadelikado nito para sa mga manggagawa, lalong-lalo na yung mga unvaccinated.
According to Tanhusay, incentives including additional vacation leave or bonuses will be better to encourage workers to get vaccinated against COVID-19 and help curb vaccination hesitancy. Tanhusay also added employers can also provide free transportation to vaccination sites and give workers a day off after they receive their COVID-19 vaccine.
Aming panawagan ay sa halip na pilitin, sa halip na discriminate, dapat ang DOLE ay magsagawa ng incentives program sa mga business owners at mga employers para mahikayat natin yung mga manggagawang hesitant, yung mga manggagawang walang access sa vaccines na magpabakuna.
Based on the guidelines of Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF, on-site workers will be required to be fully vaccinated beginning December 1. If still unvaccinated, on-site workers will have to undergo regular COVID-19 testing. DOLE explains the no work, no pay policy is an option for employers to implement in the hopes of increasing vaccination rate among their workforce. Work from home setup can also be arranged as long as it fits the job description of the employee. DOLE also clarifies there will be no punishment for employers and workers who are unable to follow the said IATF guidelines. The law still states that vaccination among employees should not be a requirement. Workers can still refuse vaccination, but regular testing should be followed.
The law naman says it's not mandatory. That's why what we're saying here is you do have an option if you don't like to be. Kaya yung mandate na yan is not, kasi kung ayaw nyo mo, yun na, pwede naman mo kayo magpa-test regularly at your own expense.
Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you, Eileen Cerudo, reporting live from Taytay, Rizal.
The Philippine Food and Drug Administration announces COVID-19 vaccines for kids ages 5 to 11 will possibly be available by the end of 2021. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
2 vaccine manufacturers are expected to submit their emergency use authorization application for the amendment of their dosing regimen. Once their EUA gets approved, kids ages 5 to 11 can receive their COVID-19 shot. According to FDA Director General Eric Domingo, U.S. manufacturer Pfizer-BioNTech is expected to complete their requirements and will submit their EUA.
By Pfizer, we hope that they will be sending in their application for an EUA very soon. Nagtanong na sila, they already asked for the list of requirements and they told us that they are completing the requirements. It's like a new EUA, no? Kasi medyo may bagong innovation to sa product.
Another manufacturer that will submit their EUA for the inoculation of younger population is China's Sinovac.
Ang Sinovac din, hinihintay namin na mag-submit ulit ng data nila for children na below parang below 18 years old. They just have to complete some more data to give to our vaccine experts, and we hope to get that soon.
The Philippine FDA is optimistic that kids ages 5 to 11 can possibly have their Pfizer or Sinovac COVID-19 shot even before the start of 2022.
I would think before the end of the year na I'm pretty sure Pfizer is going to be ready, and the Sinovac also told us that their data is being collated and will be submitted soon. So I believe before the end of the year we're going to have vaccines for children below 12.
Currently, Pfizer and Moderna are authorized for emergency use on minors aged 12 to 17 in the Philippines. Israel and the United States of America are the countries that have begun the inoculation of children aged 5 to 11. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
No COVID-19 cases have been reported so far in schools with limited physical learning. But the Department of Education noted challenges among participants in following health protocols in classrooms. Janice Inhente will tell us why.
The Department of Education has recorded over 80 students in 100 pilot schools conducting limited face-to-face classes who are not present during the start of physical classes. According to DepEd Assistant Secretary Malcolm Garma, the absent students experience same symptoms of COVID-19 such as cough and colds, sore throat, and fever, and were not permitted to attend the class. A school personnel experienced cough, and a school visitor was found to have a fever and was barred to enter the school. However, DepEd clarifies that among 7,324 students who are present at the physical classes over the week, there are no reported cases of COVID-19.
Sa unang linggo po ng ating pagpapatupad ng limited face-to-face, ay wala po tayong naitalang kaso ng COVID sa mga lugar na ito.
Meanwhile, DepEd clarifies that students who have experienced similar symptoms of COVID-19 will not be automatically subjected to swab testing.
Ayaw naman nating iswab yung mga bata We might trigger accident. Sinabi ko na yan, tutusukin mo yung sisipain ka ng bata o sisigaw. Wala na. We will create more trauma for the child and also trigger accidents.
DepEd admits that it was difficult to discipline the children, especially in kinder level, to properly wear the face mask during physical classes.
Talagang hirap yung ating mga kindergarten learners na isuot yung kanilang maskara sa mahabang panahon. So, maya't-maya ay inaalis ng ating mga maliliit na mag-aaral. Meron pong mga tao sa labas ng paaralan na hindi naka-face mask at gusto nating panawagan na sa ating pong mga katuwak, lalo na po sa local government unit, na siguruhin na yung pong mga tao sa paligid ng ating paaralan ay makitang nakasuot ng kanilang mga face mask.
Meanwhile, DepEd ensures they are prepared to assist the students and teachers in the event of a COVID-19 infection in schools during physical classes. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines today logged 1,153 more cases of COVID-19, pushing the nationwide tally of confirmed infections to 2,827,820. The Department of Health, or DOH, said the latest count brought the country's active cases further went down to 18,721. Of these cases, 55.2% are mild, 20.51% are moderate, 13.8% are severe, 5.8% are in critical condition, and 4.7% are asymptomatic. Meanwhile, total recoveries rose to 2,761,617 after 2,182 more patients recovered from the disease. COVID-related deaths climbed to 47,482 with 195 new fatalities. All accredited testing laboratories in the country were operational on November 21, but 5 laboratories failed to submit data on time, the DOH noted in its report. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has reached 258,286,868, while the deaths have surged to 5,159,558, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The United States is the worst hit country with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 47,888,144 and 772,343 respectively, followed by India and Brazil.
For the news abroad, China surprises the US after a test launch apparently fires missiles from hypersonic weapons successfully. Marvy Delphine will tell us why live. Good evening, Marvy.
Good evening, Elsie. China is attempting to expand their capabilities in developing and firing hypersonic missiles and weapons. A successful test launch held back in July and August surprised U.S. military officials, querying if the program's results will be a new threat to the country. Additionally, Aerodynamics Research Institute of the state-owned Aviation Industry Corp of China announced that it has in progress a wind tunnel with high speeds and temperatures to support the hypersonic missiles. The tunnels have now also passed major airflow distribution calibration tests, formally making it capable of supporting further development projects. U.S. Pentagon stated that no other nation has been known to have this ability so far, and that Beijing is advancing military capabilities significantly. According to U.S. authorities, it is suggested that China's President Xi Jinping may be developing the hypersonic weapons as a counterstep against America's advancements in deflecting and intercepting missiles presumed to be a threat in their borders. However, Ankit Panda, Senior Fellow Nuclear Policy's Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, did add that the international community should not be quick to assume that China intends to deploy these weapons within the field. So far, China, Russia, and the US are identified as having the most advanced technological capabilities around hypersonic missiles. Among others, India, Japan, France, Australia, Germany, and North Korea are also said to be investigating the technology. Elsie?
Marvy, what is the significance of hypersonic weapons?
Elsie, hypersonic weapons are known to have speed fast enough to change the air molecules around it, which traditional missiles cannot do. That makes these weapons very hard to detect and very difficult to counter with current and known defenses in today's age. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Marvy Delphine, live from Australia. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention elevated its travel recommendation to Denmark and Germany as level 4, while the U.S. State Department issued a parallel do not travel advisory to these 2 European countries. Ann Gonzalez tells us why.
Denmark and Germany are both seeing a rise in COVID infections for the past weeks, putting both European countries on par with 75 destinations worldwide to have a level 4 travel alert by the US government. New infections double every 12 days in Germany, especially among the elderly and children who are not eligible for inoculation. Danish children are also mostly affected in Denmark, with schools reaching a record level. The World Health Organization warned countries to change their tactics on reacting to COVID surges to preventing them from happening in the first place. Ann Gonzalez, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Due to continued border uncertainty between Australia and New Zealand, Air New Zealand has cancelled more than 1,000 flights between the two countries till December 31, 2021. The airline estimated about 20,000 customers would be affected by the decision. Customers can opt to hold their fare in credit for travel at another date or receive a refund if they have purchased a refundable ticket. Air NZ's flight schedule beyond December 31 remains in place until it receives an update from the New Zealand government. The Canadian government lifts pandemic restriction on asylum seekers entry, which is deemed to be controversial and unlawful. Charisse Longbowen details why live. Yes, Charisse?
Good evening, Elsie. In a revised policy document released on Sunday, Canada is ending the COVID-19 policy of turning back and returning asylum seekers or refugees who are trying to cross into the country. This policy was set into place due to health concerns during the COVID pandemic. The country has turned back at least 544 refugees to the United States between March 2020 and October 2021. According to Kate Webster, co-chair of the Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers, some of the barred refugees were put to detention by the U.S. border officers and deported to their country of origin without the chance to make their claim in Canada. Maureen Silkoff, a refugee lawyer who took the government to court over the policy, said that Canada failed on its obligation to protect refugees. It is a relief that the policy was lifted because it is evident that public health and refugee protection could go together. Furthermore, according to Silkoff, it did not make sense to block people seeking protection while letting tourists enter the country. Meanwhile, the Canadian government has no immediate response as to why they are lifting this policy and what quarantine rules would be applicable for the asylum seekers. Elsie?
Charisse, during the time that this policy was effective, were there any way for the refugees to enter Canada?
Yes, Elsie, there were some exceptions available when the policy was put in place. The asylum seekers can file claims as part of a controlled approach to reopening the border. However, according to the advocates, this option is only open for those who are aware of it and who had a legal advisor. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Charisse Longbowen, live from Bangkok, Thailand. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
The National Telecommunications Commission has directed leading telco networks to warn its subscribers on scam messages offering fake jobs. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why live. Asher, go ahead.
The National Telecommunication Company receives several complaints against spam text messages that are recently becoming rampant. Spam messages are being used in fraudulent acts to gain financial advantage from their victims. With this, the NTC orders the leading telecommunication companies to text blast a proposed message to warn their subscribers.
Nagpalabas na ng advisory and commission, no? Advising ang ating mga kababayan na pagka may narinig na ganyan, etc. I-report dito yung number para ma-block and wag magbigay ng maski na anong information, personal information. Kasi delikado po yung mga yan.
The NTC also plans to work with other law enforcement agencies to catch the perpetrators.
We can coordinate perhaps with NBI at police para surveillance, no? Ma-determine kung sino-sino yung mga yan, grupo ba sila o individual, etc.
Cabarrios further explains that the people behind these activities will eventually stop if they will gain nothing out of it. Hence, the NTC urges the public not to entertain them and report such incidents so they may block the phone number. Complainants may contact the NTC through their phone numbers including 028920-4464 and email address consumer@ntc.gov.ph. Malacañang, however, will let the NTC and the National Privacy Commission resolve the issue.
Oo, syempre, pag privacy issue yan, it's always a cause of concern. Not only for the IATF but for government and for the public, syempre. Kaya nandyan po yung NTC and National Privacy, they have their mandate, they know what they must do, and we will continue to monitor them in the performance of their mandates.
The National Privacy Commission, on their part, commits to the investigation of scam messages.
Ito nga, sabi ko nga sa inyo, is an organized international, global na sindikato ang gumagawa nito at gumagamit ng mga numero na nakuha po nila sa marahil sa ibang paraan po. Malalaking database po ang ginagamit nila dito. Maaaring nanggaling po yan doon sa mga dati hong na-breach o na-hack. Ginagalugan na rin natin yung dark web dito, yung Secraki, upang malaman kung meron nga pong nagtitrade nitong mga numbers ng mga Pilipino dyan at ginagamit po dito.
Jago, the Privacy Commission, however, clarifies that the contact tracing system has nothing to do with the system or the spam message, contrary to some people's speculations. Jago.
Thank you, Asher Kadapan Jr., reporting live from Quezon City.
2 years after the partial promulgation of the Ampatuan Massacre case, full justice remains elusive for the families of at least 34 journalists who perished in the attack. Dante Almento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, go ahead.
Good evening, Harleen. Attorney Nena Santos, legal counsel for the 35 complainants in the Ampatuan Massacre, has disclosed that 82 accused of the gruesome killing are still at large. Verdict will not be handed down unless they can join the case trial or present their defense. Attorney Santos added the principals of the incident, such as Andal Ampatuan Jr. and Zaldi Ampatuan, have also appealed before the Court of Appeals. Thus, until now, kins of the victims have not yet received the compensation awarded by the court 2 years after the promulgation of judgment in December 2019.
Hindi mo siya matanggap until may finality of judgment, di ba? So, ganun pa ang hintayin mo. So, kaya madaliin ng Court of Appeals para kung sakaling magpunta pa sila ng Supreme Court, madaliin na rin. Kasi ilang taon nang naghihintay, wala pang na-receive yung mga
Despite this, families of the victims vow to continue the fight. Maria Rena Fe Castillo, daughter of photojournalist Rinaldo Bebot Momay, wants her father included in those killed in the massacre. Based on the court decision, Momay was excluded because his body was not found.
I will fight in order to move forward. Being able to forward is to stay on the process of finding justice for my father, Reynaldo Bebot Momay. This process became my own racetrack, which I must go over and over again until I get to my destination, and that is to make someone accountable for my father's death, for a daughter's loss.
Nagkakaisa naman tayong lahat na si Rinaldo Momay is the 58th victim of the Ampatuan Massacre. So, patuloy pa rin yung Fight for 58 campaign.
Meanwhile, Harleen, in a statement, Presidential Task Force on Media Security Executive Director Undersecretary Joel Egco said they shall continue to pursue the suspects at large until they are all arrested. Today, the country commemorated the 12th anniversary of the Ampatuan Massacre that killed over 52 individuals on December 23, 2009 in Maguindanao Province. And that's our latest live. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live from Quezon City.
Members Church of God International accomplished another free potable water project in Tarlac province, this time in Sitio Yeyang. Nina Armilio reports.
In a remote part of Tarlac province, there live a community of our indigenous Aitas. In Sitio Yeyang, Santa Juliana town in Tarlac province, residents have long been enduring the lack of clean water. The nearest artesian well from where they fetch water is a 1-kilometer walk from their houses.
Kasi po simula po bata po kami, malayo po talaga yung bomba. Malayo po, tapos sa pagbubuhat po ng tubig, yun po sama-sama ng mga anak ko. Simula bata po kami, nagbubuhat po kami ng mabigat, papunta po ng bahay, ganon.
Even if there is water to fetch, they are unsure of its safety.
Mahirap po ang tubig dito, lalo na po halos hindi namin alam kung marumi o ano, kaya kumisan nagkakadariya yung mga bata. Kaya kumisan mo bumibili na kami ng mineral o nakipag-igib na kami sa barangay.
Masakit na po yung ulo ko kasi doon pa po sa baba. Sabi ko po sa asawa ko, magtiis na lang tayo habang walang sabi ko, malay mo naman soy ka sa may gagamitin si Lord na para bigyan tayo ng tubig. Sabi ko doon po sa asawa ko. O tapos manalangin tayo, sabi po ng asawa ko sa akin.
Mothers in Sitio Yeyang have to walk for 1 whole hour to go to a stream where they do their laundry. But every day, they carry with them hope that someday God will bring a miracle and help end their suffering from water scarcity.
Nangangarap din po ako magkaroon ng tubig po rito sa taas. Hiniling ko rin po kay Lord na sana po, Lord, sabi ko darating ang araw magkatubig po rito sa amin.
This kind of opportunity to do good is what the members Church of God International always grabs. In no time, MCGI accomplished another free potable water project with God's help and mercy. Now, the residents' wish has finally come true.
Hindi ko po alam kung paano po maipapaliwanag yung saya ko. Hindi na rin po mahihirapan yung mga bata na magbuhat ng damit mula po sa ilog.
Ngayon po meron na pong bomba. Araw-araw po naliligo na po yung mga bata dito po. Tapos kami rin po na naglalaba, hindi na po kami pumupunta sa sapa.
Para pong mineral water na binibili po sa yung lasang-lasa po. Okay na po, wala na pong problema. Lahat po dito, gustong umigib na po. Pwede na tayo pong uminom.
Kailangan po natin ng Diyos. Huwag po tayo makalimot na tumawag sa Kanya. Huwag tayo makalimot na magpasalamat sa Kanya. Kami po sa MCGI ay maliit lamang nakatulong sa gawang mabuti.
MCGI is thankful to God for another great opportunity to do good to our fellow man. It is through God's merciful hands that the MCGI Free Potable Water Project reached Sitio Yeyang. To God be the glory forever!
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 9. It says, "He that hath a bountiful eye shall be blessed, for he giveth of his bread to the poor." And those are the reasons behind the news, November 23, 2021. I am Herlene Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. Evangelio Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Totoo yan. There's a candidate who was using cocaine. And you can ask yung mga mayaman. They go on yate, or in the air. Doon yan sila magsop-sop ng ano nila.
Yung requirements sa Mutual Defense Treaty, very technical and restrictive po, shall we say, yung nakalagay na requirement on. Ang requirement po is an armed attack against Philippine troops, public ships or aircraft in the metropolitan territory of the Philippines.
Hindi mo siya matanggap until may finality of judgment.
Well, nagkakaisa naman tayong lahat na si Rinaldo Mumay is the 58th victim of the Ampatuan Massacre. So, patuloy pa rin yung Fight for 58 campaign.